So welcome everyone to the RealRitchie Podcast. We're doing something a little bit different today, and I have someone really interesting here. Can't wait to, actually, I found out about Nichelle here from her podcast. My girlfriend was listening to it and she sent me the link and she's like, hey, check out this girl. She's from Sudbury. She does really cool stuff. So you should reach out to her. So do you want to introduce yourself? Because we're doing like a dual podcast here, both of us.
It's going to be like a little bit of like a tennis match kind of thing. So it's going to be really, really interesting and exciting. So if I have to go first, my name is Nichelle Thomson. I'm the owner of H.E.A.T, Holistically Elite Active Therapy. So I specialize in chronic pain. And I do that as a manual osteopath and also incorporate cold laser, which is that device right there behind me. And essentially what I do all day is I help people live better quality of lives, and doing that through becoming pain-free. I've helped people who have avoided surgery, people who went to all these different types of specialists and stuff like that for back pain or something like that, and I've been able to help them. And I just love what I do because it's like detective work, figuring out where the cause of the problem is, because oftentimes where people feel the pain, that's not where the pain or the source of the issue is coming from. And that's what I like to do all day.
And how'd you get into that? Like, was it a young age?
Pardon?
Was it a young age where it just clicked? You're like, I want to do this.
Actually, yes. So I pretty much been practicing since I was like 4 years old. As weird as that sounds, is just something that I was always attracted to. Like, it was one of my aunts like, oh, can you take a look at my wrist? And I remember feeling little bones in the skin and the tendons. And then I went into dance and gymnastics and was constantly injured. And my teammates who would be injured, I'd go in and just, investigate and help out and just kind of see what's going on. And then I got injured actually at a dance competition, and I found athletic therapy first. So I'm first an athletic therapist, and then all my professors and supervisors were manual osteopaths. And I fell in love with that. And I said, yeah, that's it. And it was snowball effect from there.
And can you describe osteopath? Like, what is the definition of that? Because I know I looked it up when I obviously found out we were doing our interview, but I told a few friends, they're like, what is that?
Yeah, so a lot of people think, like, when they think of osteo, they think, oh, you deal with bones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually much, much more than that. So if you look at the way most professions practice in therapy today, it's mostly bone and joint and muscle dominant. Whereas manual osteopaths, we're considered like biomechanical engineers of the entire body, because we don't only look at the muscles and the joints and the bones, but we also look at the alignment of the joint and the pressure within the joint, and like the tug of pull of the ligaments and the firing pattern of the muscles and the organs and the cranial bones and the flow of the cerebrospinal fluid and the flow of the blood and the positioning of the nerves. And so the list really does go on. Like, so whatever structure is in the body, that's what we target. So that's why, like I was saying, like, people go to all these different specialists and stuff like that. I'm not saying that to brag by any means, like, at all. That is not my intention whatsoever. It's just because we're so, I guess you could say, knowledgeable about all the structures of the body, we're able to say, okay, you had a bad fall in your tailbone 20 years ago, and that's what's causing tension on your dura, which is causing you to be pulled this way, and that's why you have osteoarthritis in your right knee. Because you were transitioning 60% of your weight on that knee for 20 years after that. So dura, just to back up a little bit, because everybody's like, what is that? So dura is a structure that encases your spinal cord, and it attaches here right behind your nose and your forehead bone, especially for my listeners on my podcast who can't see me point to my forehead. It wraps around the inside of your skull, down your spinal cord, and then ends right at the tailbone. So that's a whole structure that encases your spinal cord. And if there's any type of tension on that, whatever side you're weaker on, it will be pulled pulled away from that side. And then therefore you have that weight distribution that isn't proper, 50-50. And then that's what predisposes you to osteoarthritis. It's that unequal weight distribution.
So going to see you would be just as useful if you go before you have an actual problem.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So preventative, because you're talking about 20-year problems. If you can figure them out in 3-4 years, like, okay, this is going on, and then you can start to mitigate it so you're in healthier shape.
100%. Yeah, exactly.
I have to come see you then. Just in case.
Just like, because like people joke and say, oh, it's like I'm getting my tune up, right? Because my clients who have known, like I have a couple athletes who come to see me now after being in the pros, and they understand the value of therapy, and they understand, okay, like I need to do this more regularly, and that's different for everybody. But typically that ends up being for people once a month to once every 3 months. And I have some people only come once a year. So it really depends. But they understand the value in that. So if there's anything kind of lingering there, essentially what you're saying, you can stop in its tracks, mitigate it, and then carry on and then prevent something worse happening.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to go see you after this whole COVID stuff is done. Because I always see these, I play basketball all the time.
Okay.
I play with these guys that are 50, 60 years old sometimes on certain nights. And I'm just like, I want to do that when I'm older.
Absolutely.
But I'm getting to that age. Like I'm not old yet, obviously, but I have some, once in a while when I'm playing more than an hour, there's places that are hurting more than they used to. Mm-hmm. So it'd be just like good to maybe know. And it's usually just one side related. So I'm guessing that's something that you would be able to help with.
Yeah, and weight distribution. And, as we age too, we start to lose water content. So then, things break down a little bit easier and easier. But yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool. Getting into that. Yeah, so I don't know, do you want to ask a few questions too? Or
The tennis coming in. So I was like, before I do my podcast, I like to stalk every person that I'm going to interview. And one thing that I really liked that I saw is on one of your social media platforms, you have a quote that's in one of your businesses. And it says, the most dangerous phrase in the English language is we've always done it this way. So can you elaborate on why, you want to have that quote, we've always done it this way, in your office? Because that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that englobes a lot of things that I feel like we're trying to do. My goal is always to be different, get out of my comfort zone, but try, like, not obviously in the cheesy way. It's as true as it sounds. Like when people say I want to get out of my comfort zone, it's super cheesy, but it does help you grow. Mm-hmm. And obviously you're a person that does that a lot as well by doing a podcast, right? I bet the first time you did an interview, like some people never want to go on camera.
Yeah.
I still remember my first video, man, I was scared shitless. I was like, oh man, like I'm going to screw up my words. But then someone told me, like, people want to see you mess up.
Exactly.
Because then it shows that you're not just like this perfect brand. You're an actual person. Exactly. So it's mostly about building a brand, but it's about taking those risks and pushing the envelope. So doing new things. And I kind of try to embody that, because when I got into real estate, there's a lot of like older people in the business that have their clients been in there forever.
Yeah.
So I figured that if I'm positioning myself as the guy that's always trying to do the next level of technology, using the next types of videos, improving my listings, and being the new guy trying new things, I can position myself that way to try and get clients instead of my competition.
Yeah, absolutely. And develop yourself as like the expert almost in that, right? Because if you're constantly in people's faces in a good way, right, on all the social media platforms, then you definitely become the person they think about when they think of real estate. And,
that's the goal.
And it's interesting how you brought up technology, because that was one of my questions to you, because you made a blog about this and you said how much technology is actually bettering the real estate. And could you maybe elaborate a little bit more on that?
Crazy, even more so now than ever with this COVID stuff. We're considered essential, but our goal, well, at least my goal, and within our brokerage, we were talking about trying to not do business just for the good of the community. So as much as possible, not going out and showing homes if it's not a necessity, and not listing the property if they don't need to. But some people, like I have someone that had to list last week, so I listed his property, but we're taking all these different measures now where instead of having 20 people going through the first day, there's only 5 people going through, but they're very qualified, because we make them look at a virtual tour, which is new technology. We're the first people in Sudbury to use it, which is where you can actually like navigate through the house. And it's like a 3D dollhouse, and you zoom in, and it's pretty interesting. So we're using all these new technologies to try and make it as hands-free as possible, or like less foot traffic through the homes, to try and slow down the spread, I guess, if there is even any left in Sudbury.
Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool. You guys were considered essential. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, they said essential, but for transactions that are currently in play.
Yeah. Okay.
There's also, I was talking to someone from down south today, and they said there's 43,000 people that are on the streets that need a home. So either renting or buying, but they prefer to buy. So those people are pretty much essential as well, because renting becomes the same issue, right? If you're buying or renting, you still have to do the showings.
Exactly. Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. Another thing too, in terms of technology, and I'm not sure if you still do this, but I saw that you also offer a first-time home buyer seminar. Is that something that you still do?
Yep. Actually, I'm organizing one for the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
I'm going to do them webinars this time, but I teamed up with the Desjardins Bank last year, and we had almost 100 people show up.
Okay.
So it's
what
good.
Kind of things can people expect to learn at this event?
Just the basics on. It's hard to go too much in detail. People will get too bored, but just going over the general steps and answering the bigger questions that people are maybe afraid to get into the market, because it's actually a lot simpler than it seems, right? It's just a large sum of money, which scares people, and I totally understand. But it's getting them the starting information to learn about the starting of buying a house so that they can start the process, and then you learn along the way a little bit. So it's basically just the basics.
And does it, like, can they reach out to you at any time? I guess that's kind of like the purpose of it, right?
Yeah, that's part of the business. Like, I'm on call basically all the time.
Yeah, no, that's because another thing too that I really notice about your content is you really tend to educate your followers more so than just try to sell them. And is that an approach you were intentionally doing, or did it just kind of work out that way?
Yeah, intentionally, but it kind of became a habit. So it's kind of like you're doing. You have a ton of videos out there. You have a YouTube channel, podcast. A lot of it's education, and do you read ever Gary Vee?
Yes.
Yeah. So have you read his book, Jab, Jab, Right Hook?
No, I have not. No, I've read his other one, Crush It, though, which was really good.
I read that, too. But I didn't read Jab, Jab, Right Hook, but I know the premise because I've read like a short description, and it's give them, like, do the jabs, little jabs, give them as much information as possible. And like you said earlier, it makes you the expert in your field because they're seeing you just giving them tons of information. And then you go for the right hook, which is the ask, which I actually rarely do. It's kind of, I'm not the type to beg for business. Yeah. I'd rather people come to me because they know me from my videos. They like me to a certain way. And that allows me to work with people that I enjoy working with.
Exactly. Because you're going to attract those types of people.
Exactly. And I understand that not everyone's going to click. You know, sometimes you miss out on a client and they go with someone else, and you know, it's a little bit tough the first little bit. You're like, oh man, like, what, is it me? But then you find out just different people click with different individuals.
Have you also ever, like, maybe followed up with that person and asked why?
Yeah, I try to always do that.
That's good. Yeah. Because I recently, like, heard of that approach, like, beginning of January, and with the COVID thing, it's hard to exercise that. But in therapy, it's a little bit different. It's not a real estate where we have that. It's kind of a little bit more fun, especially with manual osteopathy. There's not very many of us in Sudbury at all, which is fun.
How'd you take it?
It can be overwhelming. Would you say, sorry?
So how'd you take it? So you asked them, so I guess they picked someone else. How did you handle it?
So I actually have a different approach, right? I don't just do manual osteopathy. I also have the cold laser, which makes me completely unique to any other manual osteopath. So normally it's people kind of switching over for that, as well as the osteopathy that I offer here, just because I can give them something a little bit different, because the cold laser basically accelerates their healing. So at this point in time, maybe it's also too because my business is quite new. It's been around for about 2 years as of April 2nd, which was weird because I didn't work because we were on lockdown. So
that's a good segue. Speaking of technology, so I use it for my business, but I was looking at that on your website. Is that the BioFlex Laser?
The BioFlex cold laser. Yeah.
So that's the cold laser?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, because it was like all orange when I was seeing the picture, so I was assuming it was maybe hot laser.
Yeah, so it's just the reason that it's not like it's cold as in you're going to get like a cold feeling. We just say cold laser because we oftentimes when people think of laser, they think of the surgical lasers that cuts through the skin, but that's not the case here. It's just red light and infrared light, so you don't feel anything. But what it essentially does is it gets right into the cell on that cellular level, and it gets rid of inflammation. Because the thing with inflammation is there's a byproduct called nitrous oxide. I know I'm going to lose a couple people here, but just bear with me. So when nitrous oxide floods the area, oxygen is not able to occupy the area because that O of the NO is taking up the space. So when the lights finally absorb that mitochondria, which you can remember way back to like grade 10 biology, that's like a little battery of the cell. And if it's suffocating because there's too much inflammation in the area, it's going to use up all its battery life and be stuck there and stagnant. And then people wonder why they have chronic pain or wonder why inflammation stays around so long when they have like a fresh like MCL sprain or ankle sprain, stuff like that. But one of the reasons why people speed through the healing oftentimes in half the amount of time is because we're like pushing right through that inflammation process. And then next thing you know, 8 weeks of recovery time goes down to 4 because it's healing the actual tissue. Because the other thing is that, like, I'm not sure, and well, you played basketball, so I'm sure you were injured many times.
Yeah.
Have you ever injured yourself in one area and then a year or two later, whatever year later, injured again at this same exact spot? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Left ankle.
Mm-hmm. So that's because scar tissue lies in place, and scar tissue is not the ligament, or it's not the muscle, it's not the tendon, it's weak. So it's like a weak link in the chain basically. But with the laser, of why the injury goes down dramatically from you getting injured a second time is because it will actually heal the injured structure of the ligament or whatever. It will actually rebuild everything in that area. And it does that because inflammation is kicked out of the area basically, then scar tissue isn't like signaled to lay down.
So if you're injured, you have to get that treatment right away? Or what if there is scar tissue that builds up, you don't get it right away, and it's 5 years down the road? Yeah. Does that treatment still help?
Yes. So I have 2 unique stories to that actually. So I work with the wolves as well. One of the therapists for the wolves. So I had, we'll use actually the more recent one. He's had a little bit of an issue with his right groin or his left groin. Doesn't really matter. But anyways, so he got on the laser basically the next day. And then the next day after that, then he played and obviously taped him up or whatever. But quite a significant difference just from having that application right away, because again, that inflammation, that's the biggest thing that's going to stop you. And sometimes people say, oh, anti-inflammatories are just as good. Well, actually, no, because it stops the inflammation process. It doesn't speed through the inflammation process. It stops it, so that actually can make it last longer, the recovery process. So that's one example. He was basically able to play the next game. And then the other example, to answer your question about is it as beneficial to do it years after all that scar tissue. So what will actually happen is this will change the collagen fibers. So if there's like a bunch of scar tissue, and there is a client I had who tore her Achilles tendon a little bit, and it like almost like the half size of a golf ball was right on the back of her Achilles tendon. So for those who don't know where that is, it's like on the back of the heel kind of. And with applications of that, and she lived all the way in Cochrane, and she was driving here for treatment. So we weren't able to do what I normally would have, or she wouldn't have been here as long, but it was over, I would say, about a 4-month period of coming maybe like once every couple weeks. And then in the summer, she was able to do a little bit more diligently. But say, I think she had 11 treatments, and all of a sudden that ball was down to nothing. She couldn't even feel it anymore. And then that knee pain that she had that would stop her from exercising, couldn't even feel it anymore. So, yeah.
How big is that cold pad? Like, does it take up?
I can actually show you.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So mine's one of the bigger ones. So it's about this side. So it's just little LED bulbs. And it's about, well, my hands are small, but it covers my whole hand. But yeah.
Wow.
So it depends, like say, like any depending on where you're putting the placement, like I'll even grow people's hair with it, and that will be like one of the, I guess you could say shorter treatments. But as we start to get into bigger areas like the back or the hip, that can take up, like the back's about an hour, the hip can take up to like an hour and a half or longer, depending.
So that you just have to lay there for an hour with the pad on you?
Yeah, because one of the reasons why this one's a little bit more effective is because of the time duration. So light therapy can only be effective if it's applied for the right amount of time, because the longer it's applied, the deeper and deeper and deeper it will get into the tissues, which will be the source of the problem.
Where, yeah, that makes sense then, where the thicker.
Yeah, exactly. Science, physics. Yeah. Okay, so my question here. So do you consider yourself to have like a good life-work balance? Or do you feel like you can improve in some areas? Or have you like managed to find the key?
Yeah, so I didn't for the longest time, but I do now.
Okay.
So
Tell us your secret.
Yeah, so it's not really a secret. I think you just have to figure it out. When I first started, I was working so much. I'm doing better now than I obviously was when I started, but I was working more then because I felt like if I wasn't working, I was wasting my time. My dad was doing this study, and I would always, like at the university, he's a prof there. So I volunteered for it, and they did your heart rate monitor. So I wore that for a week, and I was not most stressed, but I was stressed sitting at home watching TV one night, because I thought I should be doing something more. But now I feel like I'm more productive the hours that I am working, which is less than before. And when I say working, before it was a lot of like very distracted work, because you can't stay focused for a full day. So now I'm a lot more focused during the hours that I am working, except during this COVID stuff. I'm not doing too much working at all, but a lot more life, less work balance in this case. But yeah, so that's not really my secret, but that's what I've been just trying to focus on, and just enjoying my time when I am off, like with family, and just trying to be present, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the toughest.
To a certain extent, though, I think that is kind of like a little bit of a secret, because I think, though, there's that misconception that you need to work all the time, which I'm a total type A1 personality. Like I feel like I need to go. And then when you say sitting, watching TV and feeling stressed, like I can totally relate to that. But then my counteract on that is like, sometimes though, when you're initially developing, like your job and your clientele and your presence, you sometimes almost have to work super hard so that you can build that base. That's what I find anyways. But then I guess that's why at the beginning, right, you weren't as well versed, but now you're just getting better at it and able to.
I don't regret what I did. I learned a big lesson from it, and it did help me get ahead. But now I'm realizing the value I was like starting to think, like, why do I want to be so successful? Like, do I need 5 million a year? I'm not even close to that, obviously, but
Yeah.
Like, do I need to like eventually want to get there?
And
I was trying to think of more valuable things in life, and I guess sometimes they pop up, and we'll see in the future.
And speaking of millions, there was another thing that you had on your website. It's like you're on the track to donate like $1 million one day. Is that something that you still aspire to do, or?
But I was hoping you wouldn't bring that up, because not really hoping, but that was my personal website, and that was a goal originally.
Yeah.
And because I was listening to a podcast or reading a book, and it was this guy that donated the first million that he made, he donated it all. Wow. And then he said after that, after you make $1 million, he said it's easy to make another $1 million, because you know the processes, you know how it's been. It's like when they say hang out with people that are better than you or know more than you, because it helps you get to that level. So once you get to that level, it's not that hard to get there again. But he said he's never been happier. He was like 32 years old. So like, I remember just getting home after that drive or whatever I was doing, because I usually listen to podcasts on the road.
Yeah.
I got home and I made that website really quick, changed my page, and I was like, I'm going to do this, and then I kind of put it off to the side a little bit. Eventually, like I know it will happen, but it's just something I haven't been focusing on.
Well, you also have to because sometimes too, if you skip too many steps, it's kind of like good to have like an idea of where you're going, right? But if it's not really on the back burner right now, at least you put it out into the universe, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm still keeping a tally of it, but I'm not trying to fast track it.
Yeah.
Like I'm still having fun, going on trips when I can.
Enjoying life, work-life balance. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, So do you have any more? Oh, actually, I do have one important question that I'm not sure if people would be wondering, but you'd be one of the best people to ask about that. So with all that's going on with COVID-19, do you think that the real estate market is going to go down or be affected in any way?
For sure affected. Going down, no. In Sudbury, I don't think. I think basically the amount of sellers are going down at the same rate as the amount of buyers. So there's still, right now, you wouldn't believe it, but 30% of the homes last week sold in multiple offers. So, which is in Sudbury a year and a half ago was unheard of. Basically, it was rare that there was multiple offers on homes. You'd hear about it in Toronto, but it never happened in Sudbury. And now the last year was crazy busy, and it's pouring over into right now. So I guess unless it goes way too long, which I have no answer for if it goes more than the 3 months, July, that they're anticipating. If it goes longer than that, this COVID stuff, then we might see the market go a different way. But if it only goes till July, I think it'll be a slow down in the market. The prices won't decrease though. And then it'll just skyrocket back to where we were, is my guess. I don't have a crystal ball.
Exactly. Yeah. Come on, where's your crystal ball?
Yeah, I wish. Man,
Yeah, because I think that was definitely kind of a concern. I know of many people, especially the people that I was treating, a lot of them kind of said a couple things. That's why I'm really glad I glanced down at my little notepad there and remembered to ask you that, because that was one of the main things I wanted to make sure to.
Yeah, I was going to ask you something about COVID as well. So I know I just recently, for the first 3 weeks, I was just working on my couch. Mm-hmm. Sitting on my couch on my computer, and then I just felt like this little thing in my back that started to get a little bit more sore each time, and I'd move around, switch my position. But I was like, okay, I got to bring my computer chair, which I brought up today, and my desk up, so I've been using this, and it feels a little bit better. But I'm sure other people are stuck to their couches or stuck to their chairs all day. Do you have any stretches or anything you recommend?
Well, actually, I have, if we're talking about low back pain, or neck pain, for example, I do have, I released a couple YouTube videos to kind of help with the overall mobilization of those areas. So if you just look up my name and low back pain or neck pain, you'd be able to find them. But in terms, if you were a client coming to see me, back pain, that could come from your organs, that could come from the dura, right? And then that all of a sudden, with you sitting in that improper place, could be pulling a little bit more on those certain areas, and now that's bringing up some issues. But honestly, though, if you don't have pain in that area typically, or if you've never had pain in that area before, if I were to tape my finger like this for a week, and then release it and straighten it out, it's going to be really sore, right? So it could just be the fact that you're stretching the ligaments a little bit too much in that area, or the muscles a little bit too much in that area. So what you want to actually do is move and strengthen your core during this time. It wouldn't really be too much about stretching per se, unless you're super, super tight because you don't move for the last 20 years of your life. But you always have to have that balance at the end of the day. It's really tough because I can't really prescribe or say, because I haven't seen exactly or assessed you, because sometimes people will come in and they're like, oh, I need a myofascial release, this big fancy thing. I'm like, okay, where did you hear that from? And then next thing you know, their muscles that attach their shoulder blades are super, super weak. And it's because they type on their desk all day like this, which is tightening everything in the front, but lengthening everything in the back. So they're actually too strong here, weak in the back, even though they have pain in the back. It's because their poor little muscles are trying to pull their shoulder blades back. In your case, your poor little muscles or ligaments, you're probably slouching over and not the best position. and then you just need to straighten yourself out. And that's probably why you feel a little bit better in the chair, because you're more upright, just in a better, more ergonomical position.
Perfect. And and the other thing I seen on your Facebook, I think it's your YouTube channel as well, is the breathing exercises. If you have COVID.
Yeah. So, if you watch a little bit of the YouTube video at the beginning, there's clips of Chris Cuomo's basically take on his experience with COVID-19 so far. And his friend of a friend of a friend, as he puts it, was a pulmonary expert, pulmonary doctor. And with the advice he said, Kate, you got to move, you got to stretch, you got to hold your breath, you got to breathe, because you don't want that tissue, that fibrous tissue in your lungs to basically harden. You don't want that. So that's why I'm like, you know what, like I need to show people how to actually properly move, so that you're not just working in the bottom of your lungs, right? Because your lungs go from here to here. Like that's quite a big area, right? Both sides. So I just laid out step by step how to work everything from the bottom to the top to the bottom, and do it properly guided, so that you know you're covering every square inch.
Interesting. Yeah. I watched part of it. That was good.
Mm-hmm.
That was interesting. Hopefully none of us really need to.
Yeah, exactly. I really hope no one has to use it, but if you do, then at least it's kind of there as a guide.
Yeah, because they're telling you a lot of people to stay home, right? If you have it, so it'd be good to just take care of your own health.
Exactly. Yeah, and lots of fluids and Advil and stuff like that. Like obviously, like I can't prescribe that, but like, you know, precautions. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think hammered out most of the questions I had. Do you have anything else you want to mention, or?
No, that is pretty much everything I find.
The Ping Pong podcast.
Yeah. A first for me, for sure.
Yeah, me too. That was pretty interesting. So I guess one more question is, I think it's pretty cool, all the content I feel like we're similar in that way, where we're trying to just put out as much content as possible. One, it's fun, I find, at least.
Yes.
But it's also education, helping you with your business.
Mm-hmm.
You just come up with that? You kind of asked me the same question, but did you, or? So
what kind of happened to me is I like, and you brought up Gary Vee, and I kind of saw one of Gary Vee's videos, and I thought, wouldn't that be cool to do something like that, but in the therapy side of things, in the therapy world. And then it just like progressed from there, and it's to the point where I feel like I need to do it, I want to do it, I love doing it, and a lot of people say it brings them a lot of value. And I have like people from like BC and New Zealand and stuff like that who follow the content. So to be honest, it's turning into something where I would like to travel one day and teach and do seminars and stuff like that. So the value of definitely reaching everybody globally is there, but also I think what it started, like the main reason why it started, was to educate people. And I think I'm doing a pretty good job of that based on the feedback. So that's turned into a love and wanting to continue to do it.
That's awesome. And that's exactly what it is. Yeah. I always, I'm teaching marketing at Boreal, and I always tell them social media is, and your brand, your online brand, it doesn't have to be a business right away, but your brand that you're creating is like the new resume, I find.
Absolutely.
Right? If you have someone that's coming to you, they're super interested in maybe finances. So they've been posting for a year straight on their Instagram and Facebook about finances, things they learned, how they do this and that, and they apply for a job. I would hire this person over someone with a 95 average that just fresh out of school.
Yeah.
Because I know they're passionate, right? And that comes through because it is a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of work, and to constantly be creative of what you're going to talk about and sharing client success stories and all that. Like it takes energy, right? It's like, but you have to be like, how I like to think of it is like, you have like, say like this much energy in the day. And it's just like, I would rather use a little bit of portion to do that, as opposed to go home early and sit on the couch and watch TV personally. And it's a little bit, and it's relaxing to me too, because I really do enjoy teaching. So for me, that's what works, and that's a great de-stressor at the end of the day. It's not for everybody, I'm sure, but if you like to be on camera, even if you don't like being on camera, you can always do the text or just the audio part or just pictures and text, right? There's like tons of options. Are you on TikTok as well, or have you not ventured in that world yet?
Oh, that is so addicting, that thing.
Yeah.
I don't create content for it just yet. I haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, like, it's kind of hard to do it when I can't go to houses technically.
Yeah.
If I do create content now, I want it to be real estate related, not just for fun. But yeah, I try not to go on it ever, because it just, you start scrolling, I'm just laughing. I'm literally laughing.
Yeah. You get into like a little bit of a vortex there. Next thing you know, 2 hours are gone, but you always learn a lot of things. Actually, I follow like a lot of like business related things, and you learn a ton of things. So it's just like, I don't know if you do ever venture into it. You kind of learn how to use it though at the same time, right? Like you're consuming content, you're getting an idea of how to work it. And that goes for anybody listening to this right now who isn't really thinking TikTok is just for kids. Like actually, like TikTok is the fastest growing social media platform ever, more than Facebook and Instagram. So if you want to become, like the real estate agent on TikTok, or the manual osteopath on TikTok, or the doctor or the painter or whatever, it'd be something to definitely explore, because you'd be one of the first for sure.
Definitely. It's getting in early. But I'm just, oh man, I feel like we were talking about being like the next step ahead of everyone else, trying to get the new technology. And I feel like I'm already that little bit older where I'm like, oh, I got to learn another one now.
Yeah. Oh, and it's just going to keep coming, I'm sure.
I know.
Yeah. But the joys of being in, the 21st century, right? Something's always coming at us.
Yeah. You got to see it as something fun to look forward to learning. Instead of like,
Yeah, exactly. A business opportunity and a good opportunity.
Yeah. Okay. That's how I'm thinking about it. Here we go. TikTok videos tomorrow.
RealRitchie follow-up.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Richie, for taking time to be on my podcast.
And my podcast at the same time.
Cool. I'm sure this is going to be the first and maybe potentially the last, but it was kind of fun. So thank you for taking the time again.
Thanks, you too. Talk to you guys later. Thanks for listening.
Real rich.